So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:36. Nice to see everyone here, and I see no one in the virtual world. Oh, there's Rhoda. Hi, Rhoda.
So Rhoda is actually in Bakersfield. She has parent-teacher conferences as well. So
Ah,
I
okay.
encouraged her to stay
All
there
right.
for
If
the
you guys
meeting.
were smart like that, I've got 3 straight late nights instead of 2 straight.
I have them tomorrow night, so
Yeah.
don't you worry.
Yeah.
All right.
It was pre
So to start off, we have our consent agenda. We have our prior meeting minutes from the October meeting and a number of first and second read policies. Any discussion around the minutes or policies? No one? All right, I'll make a motion then to accept the consent agenda. We'll do that by roll. Lisa? I can't hear you, but I could read your lips moving.
It's, you have to have 2 cords plugged in for audio.
Maybe.
All right, hang on, we have a little bit of a technical,
And Robert is
Issue.
right outside the door if we need him.
but Morgan, we also have Erin?
Aaron's also on
Okay, so,
there. Try that again.
all right, Lisa, can you see if the speaker works now? No. All right, hang tight.
We don't have sound.
Give it another try.
Depends on how you're plugged in.
What?
I don't mind snuggling
Let's try that.
No. I don't blame you.
Try it again, Lisa.
Yeah, no, done.
That's out.
From the PCH side? No. I thought that was supposed to come out like,
For reach.
yeah, nothing.
But we did have a meeting though with, oh, you were there for part of that?
Yeah, that was, yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
Cool about the grant, huh? I was psyched. I didn't realize how competitive it was. That was 6 out of 19. Yeah.
Great writing
Speaker
skills.
setup.
What's that?
Great writing skills.
It's nice to put it to use.
That's coming through. Might be a little loud. Might have to turn it down. Try talking now.
One more try, Lisa.
She's muted.
Is that
You're
the problem? Because they're muted.
She unmuted before you.
Microphone capture internal microphone. Yeah.
Lisa, if you can hear us, can you give another try on your eye?
Yeah, it's picking up our audio, so I'm not sure what the issue is. Our audio's active and our speaker's active. Let's see, I don't know what the issue is.
They can hear us, Morgan?
Good, we're not so sure they still can.
Can you hear us?
Ooh,
We can now.
question.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, nice. Yes, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Bye, Robert.
Yep.
All right. Perfect. So Lisa, you were an aye. Awesome. Erin?
Aye.
Thank you. Arlene? Oh, sorry, we're voting on the consent agenda, prior minutes and policy.
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
John, and Mary is an aye. Okay, awesome. So, prioritization. Lynn, I think given that we have Heather here to speak under your agenda, what I'd like to do is public comment, school spotlight, and then put you ahead of Morgan,
Okay,
since his is gonna be rather lengthy.
sure.
Okay. So visitors, anyone online virtually, Morgan?
No one yet?
All right. So no public comment tonight. And that brings us to Jessica with our school spotlight.
So, there is a PowerPoint link in there, I believe.
Yes.
You can bring that up, Morgan, and share it with them.
Are you on email? Jeff?
What?
Are you-
Are
Are you on email?
no, I got to it right from the board notes that Courtney sent out.
It's attached to the agenda.
It's right, yeah, it's right in the agenda.
Just open up the phone.
I can share it with you.
I might have it now.
There you go. Yep, if you just go to the first slide.
The first slide is the,
Just says Sheldon School.
it says
Spotlight.
Sheldon School Spotlight. For some reason, it did bring, it when you click over, it brings you to the middle of the,
That's interesting.
It did to me too.
That's fine.
there
I
we go.
promise I'm not reading every slide. Everyone has it, so they can go into more detail as wanted. So I wanted to just share everything that's happening in the building. There's some great things happening, so I want to highlight each class. Our first one is Miss Karen and Miss Holly for preschool and pre-K. They refer to the 3-year-olds as preschool, the 4-year-olds as pre-K. They're working on school routines, fine motor skills needed for writing, and making connections with friends. They've been doing some great stuff there. Our Kinder Bears are working on number formation, easy, creating numbers in different ways. And then they're also working on early literacy and reading letters. First grade students are building routines, lots of creativity and strong math brains. They really love reading. They go out into the woods for adventures once they earn Bear Paws, which is our PBIS motto. Yep, one more, Morgan. Our second graders have been exploring place value, how numbers work, using blocks to make math fun, routines and expectations. And they've been doing a lot of learning about animals, so they go into the woods and explore the animals in their natural habitats. The woods are a great resource for our kids. In third grade, they've been working on personal narratives, detailed sentences and paragraphs, math conversations and communications about numbers. Mr. Ethan refers to the students as mysterious creatures. This was a reward. The kids chose to bring in stuffed animals for PBIS when they were snuggling them while they read and worked during the day. These are Mr. Ethan's mysterious creatures, and they're all little Sasquatches. It's a huge theme in his classroom, and the kids are enthralled by it. Miss Mativier, she builds class community by giving them a class name at the start of the year. Mativiers, they're M&Ms, and that was their decision for the year. They go to the forest on Fridays, and it's hard to see in the picture, but they're using found objects to make out their spelling words. So they wrote, one of their spelling words was resist. So they spelled it out in the bottom there. And she has a crochet corner, which is helping with social emotional skills, fine motor development, and math for the counting and the looping and everything that goes into that, and the kids are enjoying it. These are projects that they've made. I'm highlighting here like it's moving up there. Whoops. Miss Canfield's fourth graders, they have mindful moments in the woods, creative writing, and they're working at multiplication and division. As you see, our classes, some of their favorite things to do is to go out into the woods. Fifth grade, they are reading current and classic literature, building social skills, and how to work in diverse groups. And they love earning water bottle stickers. It's like the new thing. They all earn them instead of bear paws, the kids want the water bottle stickers, and they earn them, they put them everywhere, not on their computers. 5B is the same thing, same idea, stickers are really popular with them, establishing norms. They've been a little resistant to book groups, but it's coming along. The stickers seem to be motivating. We've earned 2 all-school celebrations for PBIS. We are the Bears, belonging, engaged, acting kindly, responsible, and safe. The bear costume was actually an 8th grade student who volunteered to wear it. One of our celebrations was a scavenger hunt, and they had to go on a bear hunt in the woods and then take class pictures with the bear. The art room, these are different art projects, and we go to the top, Artsonia. That is an online gallery of student work that is I'll let you do that at your leisure. But all of the students' work is loaded there, and they can follow them from year to year. Mr. Bestie in physical education, these are what he's working on in each grade level, but the big thing to notice is whenever kids leave PE, you can go to the next slide, Morgan, they leave sweaty, full of smiles, and wanting to go back. These are our younger kiddos, and if you go to the next one, it's all about football and being outdoors with them. Mr. Bestie is one of our first-year teachers. Next up is music. This is our beginning band and our concert band. 79% of our 4th graders are participating in beginning band, which is a huge number, especially coming off of COVID. And the concert band numbers to maintain a band that level post-COVID is rather impressive as well. Next one. Mr. Comstock posted when his concerts are at the bottom for K4 is during the day on the 13th, instrumental, December 15th after school if anyone wants to attend. And he just highlights what they've been working on. Tech, they've been working on evaluating websites for inaccurate or biases and how to use that in their research for other classes. And Mr. Hickey, Robert, who was just in here, writes the standards that they're working on at the bottom as well. In addition to library, Ms. Folio uses a lot of STEAM work in here so that kids can work on technology, engineering, art, and math and science, all while reading at the same time. Wellness for K4, she's working on zones of regulation, empathy, and this new book and program she's using called Spots of Feelings, where kids are learning how to recognize their emotions in other ways. Health and wellness, when this draws 5 through 8, there's a lot of talk around tobacco prevention right now, and 6th through 8th grade is learning about preventing use of e-cigarettes or vapes. And she put the high school transition dates down there as well. Middle school language arts, they're working on book groups, analyzing characters and point of view. Science is in observing the other day, they are building incredible models of cells and as well as the organ systems. The creativity in the projects in there has been really impressive. Middle school global studies, 6th grade geography, 7th grade is working on the world history, and 8th graders are working on Native American cultures in the 13 colonies. Middle school, ratios, proportional relationships, introduction to slope for mathematics. And then for our interventionists, 1st through 8th grade, they're working new strategies to increase their understanding. And lastly, for math intervention, students are working to fill in gaps in their math thinking with math supports during WIN time, which is their what I need sessions during the day. I know that was quick. I wanted to not spend 30 minutes on all slides, but it's just a highlight of what's happening in the building, and there's some really good stuff happening. Any questions or
Great,
comments?
Jess. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. I love the photos. It was the visual was so nice to see and great to see so many kids engaged in so many ways.
Yep.
Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Love that
thank
you got all
you.
corners of the building too, and that you were very concise, which we also appreciate.
Not a problem.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jessica. So I think now, Lynn, we'll move on to your report.
Okay. So I don't have a slideshow this month, so I'm just gonna go, you have my board notes in your packet. So nothing has changed in your personnel report since you received it. So the hiring pieces, those are informational. You have support staff hires. Mary, do you want me to go through them or just refer to your packet?
I'd say just refer to the packet.
Okay. So there's still some open positions in the district. I always like to read those in case anyone is listening and is interested in teaching. So in Bakersfield, we're still looking for a grade 2 teacher and a math and literacy interventionist. Berkshire is looking for a paraeducator. Sheldon is looking for a grade 5 teacher and a paraeducator. And then that's all I have for personnel. And then we have a request from Sheldon family. So Mary, do you want to just have her come up and
Yeah.
let us know the
You
ask?
happen- Yeah, if you want to.
There's a chair right there by Jess, actually.
Sure.
Want to
I'm
introduce
standing too.
yourself
That's okay.
and
Yes,
share your.
So hi, my name is Heather Crawford. My son Wyatt Crawford is an 8th grade student here at Sheldon School. My husband and I have lived in Sheldon since '94. His grandfather prior to that, we inherited the land from him, so we've had a lot of history with the town of Sheldon. A few years ago, my husband and I started looking for property down on the Quam Shore. We wanted to live on the lake. It was kind of something that we had always wanted to do. About 2 years ago, we bought a property down there, and we bought it in St. Albans because we knew that our son was gonna go to BFA. That was something that we had looked forward to. We bought the house 2 years ago, kind of been renting, we rented out during the summer months, and wanted to eventually live down there full-time. Well, we wanted to wait until the spring of this year, January, February, before we put our house on the market here in Sheldon, just because we just wanted to make sure we were down in St. Albans prior to Wyatt starting BFA in the fall. Well, with the market, as you know, interest rates started to rise, houses were sitting on the market longer, so friends of ours that are real estate agents said, you may want to think about it now, your house could sit on the market for a while, so even if you're looking at that January or February time frame, that you may have to wait until that long, and it may just sit that long. Well, our house didn't sit that long. It actually sold fairly quickly. We only had a couple people look at it, but the family that did look at it had sold their house in June. They then moved into their camper at Lakewood Campground to stay there until they found a home. And they have 3 boys, 2 of which go to MVU. So they wanted to get into a house fairly quickly. So we sold our home, closed on it September 19th of this year. Thought, well, we'll just continue as we have, bringing Wyatt to school and let him continue his 8th grade year with Sheldon and finish it here. Knowing that next year he was gonna go to BFA, there was gonna be a lot of big changes, just so he could kind of keep that relatively normal as it was with school, being that we had just moved into a new house. And then I did receive the residency declaration from Jessica, as we had closed on the house and now they needed to know where we were living. So I didn't dispute it. I contacted Lynn Coda right away because Jess had gone out on medical. Contacted Lynn to see what we could do about keeping Wyatt in Sheldon. Whether we needed to pay the tuition for him to stay and continue, or what needed to be done in order for him to continue out his 8th grade year. It was kind of something my husband and I had promised him, that we would do our best to keep him with his friends, and, you know, keep him in the band that he's in, planning for their 8th grade trip this year, and graduating with friends that he's been with his whole life. So, of course, no fault of his own. So we started looking at different things, money-wise. Is it an issue with the tuition piece of it? I did contact the business manager and kind of got a rundown of how that works, that when the school budget is passed, or when you're looking at passing it, you look at an average of the last 2 years of students, the number of students, and that it is, you know, averaged out, or that's how you figure out when you go to the school, when you go to the town meeting to pass your budget, it's based on the 2-year average. So when I look at it, why it's been in that 2-year average of students, the number of students that have been going to Sheldon over the last 8 years. So I want to say he's been accounted for in that budgeting. We looked at a few different things, you know, academically, socially. We knew that with COVID, it was such a big hit for kids being home, that them, you know, taking that hit for socially and academically, being on Zoom meetings, that they're behind. You know, studies have shown that kids that during COVID, those things they've kind of fell behind on just because they were home. They didn't have that social interaction at school. So, you know, big changes for kids over the last 2 years with that. We want to petition the board to keep Wyatt here because we feel that socially, it's in his best interest. Anytime that kids go through changes, we know that there's angst, there's worry. We look at it that him going to St. Albans School, that, you know, now he's gonna take 2 to 3 weeks maybe to acclimate. Their academic might not be the same as what it is in Sheldon, where he is now with his teachers and you know, his curricula that he's in now. Will he have to catch up? Will he be behind? We look at, you know, just other pieces. Sheldon School, is it overpopulated? Is it kids waiting to come in? Is he taking the place of somebody that is maybe homeschooled and needs a place in? And that's not the case. We're speaking with a few of the teachers here, looking at St. Albans School. All schools have some type of behavior issues. How is St. Albans compared to Sheldon School? Both the teachers I spoke to felt Sheldon was a lot less problematic than going into maybe a school like SATEC. You know, we looked at busing, like that is something that schedules didn't have to change because Wyatt's now on a different area. We've brought him to school for the last 3 years, so that's something that we don't rely on the school for at all, or the busing. Was there a drain on resources? He's been in the school the last 8 years, so he's still with that same flow that he's been. You know, we just looked at the negative impacts of it more than anything, and really what would what is the big hurdle that this is going to go over for him? I mean, what are we, is the change something that's gonna help him, or is it gonna be more detrimental to him? I know that as educators, you know, you look at the student's best interest, you know, both academically and socially. And would this be academically and socially responsible to send him to another school? So I just kind of wanted to play, you know, for my husband and I, we wanted to kind of plead our case to try to keep him into Sheldon for the next 7 months, so he could stay with his friends, stay with his buddies that he's kind of grown up with, finish out his school year. I know that they've got their school concert that they're coming up with for band, and like I said, they're planning their 8th grade trip, their graduation. It's all a big part of that next step to high school. So, you know, I know that they've looked at different things like tuition, that I know that the board hasn't always been in favor of that. But, you know, is it something that is a financial hardship for him to stay in Sheldon? And I guess that's something that only the board could kind of answer or look at, but, that's kind of my case, where I wanna plead it, and of course, you know, Wyatt just wants to stay, be with his friends. And Mr. Kolnowski, has written a letter that he wanted to share with the board, kind of, as well as pleading Wyatt's case for the reasons why it would be good for him to stay and be a member of the community still, even though that we've left, so. But thank you for your time, I appreciate it. And, if there's anything else, or if you have questions, or, yeah.
Any questions for Heather from the board? We appreciate it, thank you so
Yeah.
much. And the letter you referenced?
I'll get it from Ed. He had finished it, then he had made a few tweaks, so
No worries.
I will bring that in too as well.
Okay.
Good.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for listening.
So the board
Great.
will discuss,
Mhm.
and Lynn will be in touch with you
Okay, good.
shortly.
Yeah, thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank
I
you,
appreciate
Heather.
it.
Thank you,
Take care.
I mean, Heather, like,
Okay. So Mary, do you want to move that to the end so that we can let others go?
Oh, yes, so I think that we will discuss that under board business.
Perfect. All right, so I'm just doing notification around negotiations. So that's something that also, because I'm gonna be looking for board input, that we'll need to do under in executive. So do you want to save that as well?
Yes.
Okay. So that I kind of have a lot of stuff that would fall under executive. I think that the next piece is about the Sheldon principal search. So as the board knows, Jess was hired as the interim principal for Sheldon. So what we had discussed last year, at the time that Jess was hired, was that we would do a full search, because as Jess knows, her process was quite late in the school year, and that's why the board ended up making the decision to go with an interim. So we'll need to discuss the general timeline and process, in the board involvement. So depending on the depth of the conversation that you wanna have, I don't know if you feel it's appropriate for us to go at this publicly, Mary, or do we wanna get into the detail of process, which I would want to do in executive.
I think we'll do it in executive.
Okay. All right, and then last piece that I had was the second to the last piece was the PASS assessment, and I'm actually going to skip that for this month because I made an error in our planning for our board reporting, our board monitoring plan for our overarching big board goals, and the assessment, when I went to pull the data, there were only 2 schools in there. The deadline for administering this assessment isn't until December 2nd, that's why I couldn't pull data. So I'm gonna have to wait, and it's possible I'll have it in December, but it's really close to the deadline where your meeting falls. So it'll either be December or January when I come back with that data. The last thing I have on my agenda is PCB testing. So I just wanted to talked a little bit about that, I believe, at last month's meeting. Does that sound familiar? Okay. I'm getting my boards mixed up. I wanted to make sure I got all of them. So we are still awaiting the results for Richford Elementary School in terms of their testing, and we had expected the results a while ago. What we've heard from the state is there's a backlog and they're running behind in that. We have Enosburg Elementary School next in line for testing, so what we've learned is that they'll be testing there over the Thanksgiving break. The other two NMV schools, Sheldon and Berkshire, they have had their site visits in both of those schools, but we have not been given a date for when they're going to do the actual testing, to my knowledge, unless you have heard. Jess, have you heard anything about an actual date?
Nothing.
Okay. So we're still waiting on that. We have done a preliminary community communication regarding the PCB testing that went out a couple of weeks ago. And the administrators in the schools that are being tested are also sending additional information out to families as that testing is happening. So the Enosburg community will, but for example, will get something in the next couple of weeks about their testing, and Richford Elementary families have been given additional information. So at our last leadership team meeting, we ran through some scenarios with our administrators to just kind of prime the pump for thinking about the creative solutions and decision making that we may be positioned to have to make as a result of PCB testing. So we did a couple of table talk activities and just kind of looked at it through the lens of all of our students are all of our students at FNESU. Even though we're not a fully merged system, we really act as if we're merged. So when one of our schools has a test that comes back that say they're positive for PCBs, it's going to be a problem that all of us are going to try to solve together. So that's really the approach we took in the table talk activities. So it may be that there are solutions that involve all of us and all of our schools, because as I said, if it impacts one group of students, it's impacting all of us. So it was interesting. I think that it was eye-opening for administrators to be thinking about all of the potential scenarios that could come up, whether it's, you know, a result that could lead to mitigation or could lead to specific spaces needing to be closed, or something that is greater and involves, you know, a whole facility or grounds on a facility. So it's something that, you know, I certainly want the board to be thinking about. We have done behind the scenes, Morgan and Vern and I have done some preliminary work just positioning ourselves so that if we were to get information, we already have spaces within each of our communities and outside of our communities that, you know, we would be thinking about as viable if we were looking for some learning spaces for groups of students. So we feel as though we've done as much preparation as we can at this point until we are able to get the results of those PCB tests. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Probably going to be hearing more about PCB testing in the news. The further we get into this process, the more schools that are tested. And I know that during the legislative session, the PCB testing will come back around and will be on the desk of legislators. So they have some more decisions to make around funding in particular. So it definitely will be something that I think will regularly be newsworthy for a while. So that's all I have, Mary, unless there are other questions.
Okay, great, thank you, Lynn. So any other questions for Lynn from the board? No? Okay, so Morgan, you're up with our financial update.
Great. So for those of you who've done this once before COVID, you'll remember that we used to do things on paper. So what's coming around is kind of a recap just of staffing. So this is the first look at staffing for next year.
Is there one for everyone or just
There
board?
should be. There should be one for everyone.
Cindy and I can share if we want to share.
You sure? I think we've got enough.
Okay.
All right.
And as that's going around, just to update you on this current year, board members and principals, you've all seen the first group of tuition bills that have gone out. I've heard back from a few of the principals already about kids who maybe have gone through your elementary schools, but they have a parent who's resident in the district that they're going to high school in. So where we find kids like that, you're not gonna be on the hook for that tuition bill. So we're kind of going through that process now. We still don't have a tuition bill yet from Maple Run or from NMVUUSD, and those are two schools that traditionally have had a good chunk of your kids. So I'm not ready to predict how our guesses were last year in terms of number of kids until we get those two big ones in. And again, I think that report will go out either tomorrow or the next day, and that goes out automatically. So you will be getting those from here on out regularly. We'll flip the slideshow that I showed to you once last month, and we'll just keep going through this each month. So we are at November 2nd. By the time we meet next in December, we will have that yield proposal from the tax commissioner, and that is one of the four numbers that goes into setting the non-residential tax rates that we will be warning in March. We probably won't have equalized pupil numbers yet. They tend to come in, they're required to come in by December 15th, and it's rare that anything comes in early. Oh, and just a reminder on that, I don't have it at the top of my head, but for folks whose seats are up, board petitions are due on January 30th, and those go to Emily Fecto, who's the Berkshire Town Clerk, as well as your district clerk. And if it's easier, you can get them to our office, and we'll get them to Emily.
Which will be in Enosburg effective Friday.
Which will be in Enosburg effective on Friday. General budget objectives, I have not changed this since we looked at this last month. Again, this is probably more useful for the public presentation in February, and we can tweak this as the board sees fit. No changes here as well. These are some of the things that we're keeping our eyes on in terms of kind of big budget drivers for next year and the year beyond. One little update is that we've gotten projections for the special ed funding for the next couple of years, and my quick look at it suggests that we're getting about $300,000 more next year than we are this year. So that's an upward trend that will continue for at least 2 more budget years. Enrollment projections, no change from what I showed to you last month. We did have a more solid prediction number on health insurance, and it's at a 12.5% increase for premiums. So that is unwelcome news, but not a surprise. And so that brings us to staffing. And if you go through this packet, which you have, and I did email it to everyone who's out on Zoom land, so you can follow along that way, is broken down first by school and then by what we kind of call these functional areas. So it'll go to pre-K direct instruction first, then direct instruction, then it goes through things like health, library guidance, principal's office, facilities, and on. To kind of walk you through the changes in this first draft, and had a conversation with a principal before the meeting tonight, and so we know the second draft is going to be different, probably a mix of up and down. In this first draft in Bakersfield, the proposal is down overall 1.7. One of those is a paraeducator, and then there's kind of bits and parts of teachers that are in there. And one thing I want to point out, for those of you who've kept these reports from previous year, with the changes to Act 173, any of our paraeducators who are trained as behavior techs are now being paid out of the supervisory union. So when I tell you that that Bakersfield is down 1.7, in this budget, it's actually down more than that because some of those BTs, as we call them, are gonna be in your supervisory union budget. So it won't track exactly, but I wanted to give you a kind of clearer picture in terms of the humans that are in the building. Berkshire down a little less than 0.9 FTE, and that's primarily paraeducator support. And these numbers are budget to budget, not necessarily who's in the building now versus who we're budgeting for. In almost every case, we've got vacancies in the building, and so you'll see throughout the budget some to-be-hired positions. For the most part, those are folks we haven't been able to hire this year. Montgomery's up 1.4. That again is all paraeducators. A little bit of that is getting better at budgeting how much time some of the paraeducators are in the building around the pre-K levels. And then the rest of that again is people who are in your building now, but it's an increased budget to budget. In Sheldon, again, an overall 1.0 increase budget to budget, and that is due to paraeducators. We've added 2 positions in here district-wide. Lynn and I talked about this, and they're here initially primarily to spur a conversation at the board level. One would be for a 1.0 teacher specifically for health that would travel among the 4 elementary schools. This is a position that traditionally has been hard to find anyone, especially hard to find people who are willing to take a fractional part of a job with one school. Similarly, a 1.0 tech integrationist who would move through and really work with teachers about integrating technology into the classroom. And I'll kick it over to you, Lynn, to flesh those ideas out more at this point, I think.
Okay. You want me to do it now?
Sure.
So the health position is something that we have not had filled in any of our schools. And we have some requirements in the ed quality standards around health curriculum. So we have woven them into guidance curriculum and science curriculums, but we should have a health teacher. I am reluctant to say let's do a health teacher in each building because health teachers are incredibly hard to find. I think if one person found a health teacher, the other 3 wouldn't find a health teacher. So the hope is that we could find one health teacher and share the health teacher, and I would have the principals work together on the how, whether it's, they share, one day they're in one building, the next day they're in another building, and so on, or it could be marking period 1, they're in this building, or 8 weeks they're in this building, the next 8 weeks they're in that building. But the focus would be primarily on the middle school health curriculum and making sure that we have someone who is better trained to be able to provide that curriculum. The problem that we have with health educators in Vermont is most programs don't offer health endorsement anymore. So it's incredibly hard for us to find someone in state with the endorsement. I think Castleton may still offer it, but I'm not 100% certain that they are. So I feel like it would be great if we could find 2, but I think right now we'd be okay starting with 1. In terms of tech integration, that's something that on the ER side, they made the decision to hire tech integrationists for some, not all of their schools. And I think that it is, we have all of this technology, and in some ways kids are using the technology, really well. But at the same time, if we're thinking about transforming type of education our students are getting, we could do a lot more with the technology. We could do a lot more in terms of how they experience the world and how they can use it as a tool that really transforms their learning. And that isn't something that, you know, us as digital immigrants, right? None of us, you know, in this room grew up with technology the way our students have. So it's not intuitive for teachers necessarily to know the depths that they could go to in integrating technology into their practice. So this is something that Dominic has talked to me about for a while, at least a few years, and I think we're at the place where it makes sense. I would use the same approach with tech integration and have it be a position that's shared across the NMV districts. Any questions on either of those?
Lynn, just a quick question about the health endorsement. Is there any way for a teacher to get that online?
That is a great question, Lisa. I don't know the answer to that.
It might be worth looking into, because it may be hard to even find a 1.0 FTE health teacher who is willing to travel from school to school. And certainly I'm with you. I don't want to see a teacher in each school specifically dedicated to health. That would get expensive fast. But if somebody could get an endorsement in an online program, that might be helpful.
I know that there are courses that are offered, and I don't know if it was Higher Ed Collaborative, but we've had several, in one of our high schools, we've had a hard time finding someone to get that health endorsement. And we have someone doing it right now, so I can do some digging, Lisa. I think that's a good suggestion.
Well, and I also have a question, if any of our phys ed people, because I know back in the day, they were paired, they were combined, phys ed and health, and those of us who had both endorsements had to apply for our health endorsement. And I wonder if some people haven't applied because they didn't think they were going to use it, but they have the courses already.
I don't know if it's still set up that way for the dual.
They're not dual anymore. And
Right.
what happened was those of us who were qualified to be dual, but to have both, had to apply over for the health as our secondary. But
Okay.
the other question is, what about the teachers now who are like phys ed and health teaching both? I know in Bakersfield, the PE teacher is also teaching health as part of his day. So will that be less than one, or will we get to increase the amount of phys ed in that school by hiring somebody
I'd have to
do health?
look at it because it's a complex puzzle, so that person might be teaching pieces of health
Yes.
that are specific to PE, that fall under the PE license, but there's.
No, he has both he has an emergency license for health
Okay.
and a PE license piece right now as well.
Both of them. So is he working on getting endorsed in both areas?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. So I lose track of some of those pieces, to be honest,
Sure,
Arlene,
sure.
in terms of who's carrying which
Yeah.
endorsement, but that's another great
It might be
point
good to
look
know
at. Yeah.
where he's going through to get
Mhm.
that endorsement in health.
Yeah.
Lynn, I have a question about the tech integrationist. Is this a
Yes.
person that would work both with students and with staff, teachers, and helping, as you said, those of us who didn't grow up with a
Right.
lot of this technology and maybe kind of limping along in our kind of command of it? Will he be primarily focused on
The adults.
students, or helping our teachers also then kind of elevate their skill set?
I'm gonna step out,
Okay.
but the answer is mostly adults.
Oh, mostly adults?
Mostly adults.
Gotcha.
Helping the adults so the adults can help the kids.
Perfect, okay.
I think if Dominic were here, he would say that the trend, I mean, the best practice is really to have the technology piece fully integrated with your, regular education curriculum.
Right.
Rather than have somebody sweeping in and teaching you how to use a computer the way that, we probably learned it.
Yeah.
And got your 1 hour a year in front of the Mac.
Yeah.
So overall with this plan that's in front of you, it's a district increase of 3.4 FTE. Again, not all of that is in your budget because we've moved those BTs out into the SU budget, but ultimately everything in the SU budget is something that we are all paying for in the budget.
Morgan, can I ask another question about the tech integrationist? And it may not be able to be answered right here, right now, but as we move forward with this idea, I'd be curious to know when this person would be meeting with teachers to help them integrate technology, because it really probably doesn't lend itself to meeting with teachers during the school day. I'm not really sure what you and Lynn are envisioning with this, and does it not just make sense to offer seminars, like in the evening or something for teachers to take advantage of to better help them? I'm not sure how this is gonna look, so maybe we could get more information in the, at a future meeting about it.
Yeah, and I certainly don't have that level of detail because I just have to remember to put them in the budget when Lynn says put them in the budget. I don't know if Jess can talk about the experience here. My understanding is that maybe actually kind of team teaching with a teacher. So you're in the classroom during a class with another teacher rather than pulling them out of a class and sitting them down and saying, this is how you teach kids technology.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Here, Robert is teaching a full schedule as well as meeting with teachers and co-planning when he can with them and maintaining all of our devices and the infrastructure.
It's too much.
I'm sorry, what was the end of that, Jessica? Maintaining all the devices, what?
And the infrastructure. He's basically doing two jobs right now, and he's stretched very, very thin.
Well, what he's not able to do is the tech integration
Yes,
piece.
exactly.
So
He's not able to get in the classrooms the way an integrationist would.
Thank you. And Lynn, for your benefit, I asked how this person would interact with teachers because I wasn't sure whether they were envisioning pulling them out of classrooms and working with them, or if it had to be an after-school thing. But Jessica just explained that they're actually working side by side with the teacher in the classroom.
it's similar to our coaching model that we use in some of the other schools for classroom teachers. So they would be in classrooms. Their priority would be building the capacity in the teachers while they're in there.
Thank you.
Can you clarify what Jessica was just saying? So does Sheldon already have its own tech integrationist, or it's a different position? And if so, is that the only school that has one in our of our 4 schools?
So Sheldon has someone that we call a tech integrationist, but there is not enough time for the person to actually be that. So what he's doing instead is he's teaching technology classes, and he is doing all of the repairs, and he's doing all the IT support in the building, which is essentially his full-time job. So even though we're calling him a tech integrationist, he really doesn't have any time to be that. So there are no other schools in the district that employ someone in that role.
And so Marty, does he do the same thing, but that's just Montgomery shared with Bakersfield, or?
Marty does tech support, so he does more of your fixing your technology, and he does some of the IT support in the building. The tech integrationist position is someone who has to be a licensed educator, and it's a specific AOE license for it. The tech support positions, it requires a high level of skill, but it doesn't require an educator license. They fall under a support staff agreement.
Okay, my last question, back to the health teacher, and I don't know if this is kind of what Arlene was talking about, but so like our PE teachers no longer, like that's long ago done away with, where they would be teaching health?
What I think what's done, I think what you were saying, Arlene, is that when you graduated, you had enough credits to get both endorsements, right?
My minor was health. My major was physical education, K-12. So it was, but the state did not have separate endorsements.
Right.
So it was one endorsement whether you had it or not.
Right.
Then somewhere, I believe, in the 90s, they split them off.
Right.
And those of us who had the credentials could apply for it. So now they're two separate endorsements.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of phys ed teachers are still teaching wellness and doing it, but they don't have the separate endorsement.
Right.
And you really should have the separate endorsement, especially middle school, high school.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think the next steps, or what the next month looks like, is that, usually I will hear from the principals calling and saying, oh, I forgot this person needs to be in there, or I have an 8th grade kiddo with a one-on-one who's gonna be in a high school next year, and so the high school really should have that person in their budget instead of mine. Or, if you're, maybe they're gonna, the four of them will get together and say, if you're thinking about a health teacher that we're gonna share, why don't we share this kind of teacher? So you'll see some changes in the next month, or when we bring this back to you in December. This is also the time where if the board has, ideas coming out of the retreat that you just had, or in general want to talk about programmatic changes at the schools, it would be good for us to have the month to kind of model what that might look like, and then bring that to you in December, when we bring you will probably be version 5 or 6 by then. And that'll be the version where we actually are bringing you a dollar amount attached to it. I'm specifically keeping that off the table now, so we can have the conversation more focused on program.
And Morgan, remind me, I think you just alluded to this, that you're waiting to kind of check in with each of the principals to see how what you've got for FTEs for all staff within each building kind of aligns with what they're projecting they're gonna need staffing wise.
So these are all coming out of that initial meeting with
Gotcha.
principals. So I met with everyone over the last 2 or 3 weeks. To be fair to them, it's a very theoretical discussion when I'm sitting down
Sure.
with them, and it probably gets the most real when they're sitting in the board meeting with time on their hands saying, oh, that looks a little different than I would have expected, and they go back and change. Also, when we meet, it'll be 6 weeks farther on in the year, and things do change. But this first cut is based on meetings with the 4 principals.
Okay. But this is their opportunity and their window to really identify any additional needs for staffing, since that's like the largest, that and our high school tuition kids, the largest driver of the budget, right? So that window is closing if there
Well,
are needs
yeah.
identified above and beyond
Yeah.
what we've kind of outlined here.
I mean, I would say functionally, yes, the window is closing. If the day before you warn this budget, something dramatic happens with either student needs or AOE requirements, we can change it that night before you warn the meeting. And
Yeah.
if something happens September 1st, 2023 that throws this all out the window, this all gets thrown out the window and we change things up.
Okay.
So I don't want to suggest that the finality is set in stone.
Okay.
But when I bring you a budget in December, we are going to be talking about real dollars at that point.
Right.
And so we'll, the staffing decisions then will start to have impacts on other decisions we make in the budget.
Yeah, okay, great.
So I would say if anyone has questions offline, once you've had time to kind of digest the names, certainly you can reach out to me, you can reach out to your principals. It might be better to filter that through me because my life is less on fire than all of theirs. And so I'm happy to kind of be that conduit.
Great. All right. Thanks, Morgan. Any other questions for Morgan? Awesome, all right, thank you so much. Okay, so that brings us to our principal reports, and Rhoda, you're up first.
Trying to unmute myself, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think I just wanted to highlight a little bit about our student council that has taken off this year and really grown from what it was even before COVID, which is kind of neat to see happening. Students are very eager to be a part of this and to share their voice, and it's a good opportunity for them to do that and get involved in planning things around our school. And the other thing is that we have hired a paraeducator who should be starting with us the 14th of November. Her name is Emily Heath, and we're excited to have her on board.
Great, thank you so much, Rhoda. All right, Lenny, you're up.
I'm not sure if I'm not going to refer to actually anything that's in the notes, although that's all important and great stuff, but I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, and I don't think I talked about this much last time, was that we've partnered with the Franklin Grand Isle Tobacco Cessation Coalition, some kind of acronym around that, and we've been partnering with them, and we had a dedicated time about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, where we had them come in and provide some drug and alcohol tobacco education to 3rd through 8th grade, and then we followed up with a media literacy presentation last week. And another really exciting, and that's great to kind of build up some foundational knowledge and understanding. It was really great to see some of these kids hearing some of the facts around addictions and some of the predatory behaviors by companies, vaping, etc., that can mislead and misinform. The disconnect between flavored cigarettes being banned, but flavored vapes being totally cool, and then kind of learning some of the stuff and seeing like, oh wow, and they had some pretty interesting takeaways from that. But then while partnering with them and discussing about what are some other next steps they talked about, and I cannot remember it now and I can't pull it up just yet, there's some sort of there's a teen institute that talks more about high school age stuff, but there's also a middle school aged one that is, from what I'm understanding of it, it can kind of be another, I've been looking for a way to get some student ownership and a student council type program up and running, but that was really focused on having the kids identify the needs and issues of the school, and then having the kids identify and problem solve some ways to address those issues. And this Teen Institute, and I forget what the junior high version of it is sort of a great partnership, and they would need us to have an adult who can kind of be a facilitator, but they also would co-facilitate and support that adult in taking the lead in helping students collect data, analyze data, develop some problem-solving strategies, enact those problem-solving strategies, and there's also some different opportunities for some intense training to build up those students to be student leaders. And I'm really excited about as that path starts to unfold. So we've been having conversations with them. That's an exciting step that I maybe will have ready to talk to you about at our next, when it's my turn to have a school spotlight. Hopefully we've got that up and running and taking some steps with that.
Nice.
And some adults in this room might have candidates for potentially being involved in that. But maybe not, but maybe. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things I thought about talking about today.
Great, thank you so much, so important, appreciate it. All right, Sandy, you're up.
So, not to repeat Lenny, but what I had to share that I neglected to put on my report was that we did have the same kind of thing. Yesterday we had Amy Brewer of the Franklin Grand Isle Tobacco Prevention Coalition and Crystal Lampman of Franklin County Caring Communities presented information regarding cigarettes, vaping, and marijuana to our 6th through 8th graders. The presentation provided our students with reliable information to make healthy decisions. The presentation offered students an opportunity to explore the research as well as similarities and differences among the 3 substances. The students participated in an engaging conversation about addiction and specific risk factors for preteens and teens. So there's some resources also that were kind of given out, and this note was sent home to families with the resources as well. That was yesterday.
Yeah, they gave me some materials I haven't shared, and that was another conversation we had, was about, along with the student education and the student ownership, student leadership program, they're also gonna partner with me about building up some things we can communicate to home so they can have some education.
So that was it was a nice presentation yesterday afternoon. They were
That's
very
great.
engaged, and the only thing else that I'd like to kind of highlight is that I've mentioned our community meetings, that we started a monthly community meeting, and the goal was for it to be completely student-run. And on Friday morning, we had our first one that was completely student-run, so it's kind of interesting when adults sit back and listen and pay attention and clap and, all that. And the students are doing it, so it's really nice.
That's great. Nice, thank you so much, Sandy. Jessica, I know you did your spotlight, but anything else that you might like to touch on?
At our last board meeting, I mentioned our newsletter and how it was being well received, so I did link one of them in there for board members who aren't parents who may not see it. I know Miranda and Emily get it, but just so others can see. I did an amendment with Jennifer Kinnison for our consolidated federal grant, so we're getting PBIS behavior coaches in the building to work with our new staff. We've been working outside to clean up some stuff sort of around the campus. There's always been a sort of a pile of, I guess it used to be a burn pile down by our nature center, and the garbage company came and was able to haul most of that away, just cleaning up around the grounds in general. There are trees that are in danger where if they were to fall, they would greatly damage the roof. I've been getting quotes from Vern about those removal. It was a recommendation from Visbit. Parking lot is getting better. As long as people are out there sort of guarding him and directing traffic, it works quite well. And one of the budget items I'm looking at for next year is a curtain for the gym to separate it out. We don't have a separate cafeteria, so if there's a delay in lunch, then PE starts late and the kids lose out, so a curtain will at least divide the two and allow class to start while others are working on cleaning up lunch.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. So, that brings us to our board business. Any future agenda items that anyone would like to talk about now? Always plenty of time. Our next scheduled meeting, early December. And SU Board Representative report. Lisa, I'm afraid I did not, well, I know that this is particularly important for you and for that SU report. I did not have time saying this to everyone. I'm not trying to single you out there, Lisa. I didn't have time to put it together for this, but I would encourage everyone to watch the meeting. It was definitely a long and kind of meaty meeting. Again, apologies. I'm happy to defer if Kat or Aaron want to go over, but I did not have time to put that together for this month. But I will share a couple of things somewhat related. We did have an excellent time at the conference for VSBA in Lake Maury. Lynn and Michelle and I attended, and it was phenomenal. I mean, they're always excellent conferences, but this one was particularly excellent, focused a lot on equity, and very timely and appropriate for all the work that we're doing at all the boards right now. And then we also did just get selected for the grant that Michelle and I wrote for the $5,000 mini grant. We were one of 6 out of 19 applications from across the state that was accepted for the grant. So that was really great news to get. I think yesterday we found that out. So we'll be moving forward with a lot of that work that we outlined in the grant. Lynn, do you have any highlights from the SU meeting that you might like to share?
Can you give me a minute to just pull something up?
Yeah.
Maybe Aaron or Kat, something off the top of their head.
Aaron, Kat, anything from you all about at the SU level that you want to share?
I do not.
Unfortunately, I missed that meeting. I was sick that week.
Oh, right, sorry, that's right.
And I think I was like just coming back from my sickness and like I'd have to go back and remember what it was all about.
Oh, well, I pulled up the SU agenda from the meeting, so that helps kind of guide,
Yeah.
jar my memory a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we too talked similarly. We did the budget development schedule, not unlike we did today, and talked a little bit about that dance between which budgets we kind of solidify first, so that we can then do the SU budget, the transportation contract, which we're putting out to bid, and we will be expecting that transportation cost to increase. That's just inevitable, given all sorts of factors, from fuel to wages and everything in between. So we can expect that budget will definitely be increasing. We are heading into support staff negotiations this season. We've heard from the union, and so we're starting to map out what the time frame for support staff negotiations will be and who's going to be participating in that. Lynn went over her this big recruitment and retention strategic plan, which I know we've been talking a lot about. And those were really the biggies. Oh, and then we finished our superintendent evaluation process with Lynn.
Michelle Irish gave a spotlight on adult SEL and how that's the focus for year one of the SEL goal.
Right. I think that kind of captures most of it. And I have noticed that the board videos are not all available on the FNESU website, but you can always go to the YouTube channel and find those, the most recent meetings. It sometimes takes a little bit of time for them to upload there, but they are always available. And you can watch them at like double speed too, if you want to get through them quickly and that doesn't drive you too mad.
So I really appreciate that you try to keep us updated on every meeting, particularly since I was the person who asked for that. One thing I do want to say is even if Courtney could email everybody in the SU the agenda, that would be helpful, because they're not all posted on the FNESU site unless I'm clicking on something wrong. But I clicked on agendas and warnings, and I'm not seeing all of the agendas posted there. And then the meeting minutes, I think we all understand that meeting minutes are very concise, so they don't really give a recap of what was discussed at the meeting. So it's really helpful for me, because I do not have the time to view the YouTube videos, especially when a meeting lasts 2 or 3 hours. So it is really helpful if you could just continue to give us an update at every board meeting. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't mind doing it at all, Lisa. It slipped my mind for this.
That's fine. I understand.
Life overtook me the last couple weeks a bit. And then yes, Lynn and I will make sure to communicate with Courtney that everyone could get that email regardless of whether you're on the SU board, because it's really, it's dense and it's great. And it's a format similar to ours for NMV. You can link over to all of the central office updates. It's a quick read, really helpful synopsis of what everyone is working on in their particular kind of realm. So certainly we'll make sure that everyone starts getting those, and so if that's of interest, and I don't mind.
She already sends out a request for agenda items to everybody. So I'm not sure if I'm just not getting the minutes for some reason, or not the minutes, sorry, the agendas, but I get the request for agenda items.
Oh, interesting, you get the
I think
request for the
Maybe
SU
there was a
agenda.
miscommunication.
For
I'll
the
fix
SU
that.
board,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right, well,
So I just want to clarify for the minutes or for the agendas, can you go back to that, Maria? So in case anybody is listening at home, and Lisa, for your information too, when you go to the FNESU homepage and you click school board, the very first drop down is agendas and warnings.
Right,
And then to the right of that, you have you have ER, UUSD, FNESU, and NMV. So when you click into each district, you should see
Yeah.
the agendas and the warnings for every meeting.
I don't, I clicked on FNESU and I get the titles and it tells me when they were last modified, and there's nothing from November. I have 6 different ones.
Well, you won't see anything for November yet because we haven't posted an agenda item. But everything is updated in there. We won't post that agenda until sometime next week. Or, yeah, it should be next week.
No, I'm sorry. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry. I guess I'm looking at, okay, I saw the October special meeting, but I didn't see that there was another meeting before that in October. So there were actually 2 special FNESU meetings in October and 1 regular meeting. So that was my mistake. And for some reason, I thought you had the November one. I thought that somebody said November, but that doesn't make sense because today's only November 2nd.
No
Thank
worries,
you.
Lisa. I just wanted to make
I
sure
think I got it.
if anybody from the community heard it, that they knew where to locate those.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
okay, great. So,
You have several items for
yeah.
executives.
So we have 3 separate executives to do. So what I think we'll do is, I'll make a motion to enter executive session. We'll let our administrators leave, and the first executive session is to discuss,
Student request?
the student request. So by roll, Lisa, and if everyone
Aye.
could just stay for just a second till I do this, that'd be great. Erin,
Aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
Miranda, John, and Mary is an aye,
Can you
and
keep Jessica for this executive?
certainly. Okay, so we are exiting executive session. It's 8:47. We have a motion to direct the superintendent to act per the board's decision in executive session regarding student residency issue.
I'll make that motion.
By roll, Kat,
Aye.
Erin,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
Miranda, John, and Mary is an aye. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion, it's 8:48, to enter executive session to discuss negotiations, right, Lynn?
Yes.
By roll, Kat,
Aye.
Erin,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
Miranda, John, and Mary is an aye.
And you are out of executive session.
All right, so we're exiting at 8:53. We have no motions pending. And we're going to, now I'm making a motion to enter executive session to discuss one final staff,
Sheldon Principal.
Sheldon principal
Search.
search. By roll, Lisa,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Arlene, Erin, sorry, Erin,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
Miranda, John, and Mary is an aye. Okay, thank you. So we're out of executive session. There are no motions pending. And I'm now gonna make a motion to adjourn for the evening by roll. Kat,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
Miranda, John, Mary is an aye. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.